Welcome back. You've heard a lot about unions and a lot from union workers this past week, but how much do you know about these organizations? In tonight's assignment education report, Lisa's going to take a look at the history of unions and talk to two experts about their opinions on whether they are still relevant today. Lisa?
All right, thank you, Mike. Now, I sat down with the president of the Western Wisconsin AFL-CIO and an economics professor who is a labor economist at Winona State University. I want to first start by giving you a little background on both men. Terry Hicks has been the president of the Western Wisconsin AFL-CIO for 17 years. He's also been a union member for more than 40 years. In 2009, Hicks published a book on the history of labor unions in La Crosse called Lacrosse Laborers. There are both public and private sector workers within the AFL-CIO. Now, Don Salyards is a professor of economy at Winona State University. He started his career at WSU in 1975, the first year a union was established at Winona State. Salyards is a public employee who is required by Minnesota law to be represented by a union. For 35 years, Salyards has been a fair share member of the faculty union on campus. Now, this means he chooses not to be a member and therefore only pays 85% of the monthly union dues and does not participate in union activities. Now, as you can imagine, both men have very different views on whether unions are relevant in today's society. We'll hear their thoughts and learn a little bit about the history of organized labor, which today makes up about 12% of the workforce in the U.S.
Industrial unions started way back, and when you went through the Industrial Revolution, businesses got bigger, and then employees were often mistreated. So there were historical reasons to have unions.
In fact, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, very young children were working long hours. Women made far less money than men, and safety in the workplace was a huge issue.
Workers' lives were thrown away. They didn't care if you died of inhaling coal dust because there were no laws to protect you, and when you died, they'd replace you with another body.
So most people don't dispute the fact that historically, unions fought for many of the worker protections we have today. But whether we still need unions to represent groups of workers to negotiate wages and working conditions, which we call collective bargaining, is what is being debated so passionately in Madison.
So there were historical reasons to have unions. Most of those reasons are non-existent today. The kind of exploitation that took place 100 years ago doesn't take place today. As we've gone, from a manufacturing to a service economy and now into a global economy, unions have just lost their relevance.
The Western Wisconsin Union president disagrees.
Every fast food restaurant in La Crosse has what I would call children working there from 16 to 17 years old. We've had to fight for laws to keep those industries from forcing them to work longer and longer hours without overtime, still in this modern era.
And Hicks feels without unions, workers will be taken advantage of again.
If we had no unions whatsoever, would you like to be thrown on the world free market and have your wages driven down to 21 cents an hour like they are in China?
Do you think that's what would happen if there weren't unions?
Well, not immediately, but even with unions, we have seen wages and productivity in America has continued to go up amongst the workers, particularly unionized workers, where we keep statistics, and wages have not kept pace.
But Salyards feels the economy would benefit from people representing themselves. He believes for companies to stay competitive in today's marketplace, they'll need to meet the needs of the worker because workers are much more mobile today.
You have to basically keep people happy and pay them as much as you possibly can relative to the competition to keep them. So the idea that regular non-unionized workers don't have power is ludicrous. They have power in the skills they bring to the table. Nobody can run a business in this country without labor.
But Hicks argues, what happens to the wages and the jobs of the laborer whose competition is making low wages in China? Without a union, who protects those workers?
It's a global economy. And, if wages get too high, then people open up or buy from Mexico or China or open up plants in China and Mexico. And while the unions are going to say that costs us jobs, everybody likes to go to Walmart and buy something cheap that was made in China that's got good quality. So everybody wants Chinese prices, and they want $20 an hour wages. Well, it doesn't work that way. You got to have one or the other.
The core of this issue boils down to protecting a worker's job and compensation, and who is best fit to do that. Hicks believes a union provides a checks and balances system, and if unions are removed from our workforce, the wages and benefits of all workers, union or non-union, will be reduced or eliminated.
Unions benefit all workers, whether you're in a union or not. It's like that famous economist said, a rising tide lifts all boats. By the fact that unions exist and have negotiated an hourly wage and benefits, vacations, days off, non-union employers have to come close to that, or why would their employees not leave them for a unionized employee? Remove us entirely from the mix, and you're putting your trust in corporate figures who have already proven they have no inhibitions on their bonuses and salaries, despite the sinking wages of their employees.
Salyards, who also owns his own company, says employers don't need a union to provide a checks and balances system. The workers bring that to the table themselves.
I have a check against my very people. If I don't keep them happy and I don't keep them satisfied, I'm going to lose them. When I get a skilled person walk out the door, it's going to take me years to replace them. And so, I mean, and then, you know, if we do have somebody quit that's skilled, oh, it's painful. It's so painful.
So are unions relevant in today's society? You've just heard arguments from two men with two very different opinions. Hopefully this informative debate provided you with a little more background on the issue to help form your own opinion.
Definitely interesting. Well,